Hello, I'm Tom Hier, and welcome to the Aloud podcast. This is the home with big voices and even bigger journeys. Only Boys Aloud is so much more than just a choir. It is a launchpad. I'm going to be chatting with standout alumni, current OBA members, and inspiring creatives, sharing the stories, the graft, and the moments that take voices from Wales to world-class stages. Let's get into it.
Right, here we are, the next episode of the Aloud podcast, and I am very excited to be chatting with a current Only Boys Aloud member. Efan, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure to have you, and I think I have met you before, haven't I?
Yeah.
I met you in a workshop, Only Boys Aloud workshop. Was that, you have to remind me, my brain's gone a bit foggy these days, but last year, 2 years ago?
Yeah,
maybe?
last year. So it was regarding advice for getting into drama school. Really.
Drama school. There we go, right? So, and how old are you now? 18?
18, yeah.
So why don't you tell me where you are right now? Like, what is going on right now? Are you doing A-levels?
I am. I'm in my last year of A-levels, so looking towards the next steps after that, really, which right now is looking like drama school for me. And be that me taking a year out to focus on all aspects of it. I'm already starting dance lessons and singing lessons and acting classes. But I want to be my best version of me going into it. So if that is taking a year out to be in a better position to audition, then so be it.
Sounds great. Sounds like you've got your head screwed on. I think we chatted, didn't we? You messaged me about audition and stuff. So like, you know, I remember, it makes me feel old, but I remember being in this situation, and Only Boys Aloud was pivotal for me to make me, well, not make me, but to influence my path, you know, because up until that point I was definitely going to go into academics. I was going to go and study geography, actually. Nothing against geography, but I think I would have probably dropped out, you know. The academy in particular was pivotal for me to help me discover that actually maybe I should pursue you know, drama school, and I didn't know what it was at the time. So that time is hugely exciting for you. And it sounds like you've got your head screwed on in terms of the preparation and stuff. How do you feel about the preparation? Like, do you feel like you are ready for the next year? Do you feel like you know, you're obviously a fantastic singer, that's why you're here, but how's the preparation going?
I'm finding it confusing. There's a lot of like steps to it, and there's a lot of different places that ask for a lot of different things. And it's kind of finding that balance, especially right now with school, balancing work and not overworking myself, but also kind of something I've struggled with over only the past few days, really, while starting to record my self-tapes, is kind of doubting where I am. So I kind of wanted to ask you as well, really.
Go ahead, ask whatever you want.
How you deal with that. Obviously, post graduation, you're going into the real world of acting and performing and auditions for musicals. So how do you deal with rejection and self-doubt during that period, which is a period that I may be facing with drama schools? Yeah,
for sure. It's a massive question, and it's a really good question. I think it's a really important lesson as well. You know, this industry of applying to drama school, and I guess those of you that don't know, I am an actor, but I also coach, and I do coach at Guildford School of Acting. So like, I very much split my life at the moment 50%. So I 50% perform, 50% teach. So I'm going to try and answer this question from like the experience of acting, and also from the experience of the other side of the table of what I see in auditions, you know, and how helpful that can be, I guess. Gosh, the rejection is huge. So much more in this industry than you would get in any other industry, from my experience. You know, if you want to be a dentist, for example, you need to be very good at science, probably biology, chemistry, potentially physics, and that's not my area of expertise. And then if you do well at that, then you will get onto a course and you apply for that into university. You do well at that course, you pass the course, and you get your, you know, first, second degree. If you do that, you will then be qualified enough to be a dentist, and then you will be a dentist. And that's it. Do you know what I mean? I'm sure there might be some application processes along the way, but you don't really have to prove, or you certainly don't get rejected. Imagine walking into your dentist and going, oh, actually, you're not for me. Like, you're not good enough. Do you know what I mean? Your dentist would be like, well, I am good enough.
Yeah.
I've literally trained for 8 years.
And it's very opinion based as well, where it's kind of like
Yeah.
every panel is different. So if they see something in you, then that's their call, rather than it being academically, you need these certain grades and then you will succeed.
It's definitely up to perception, isn't it? Like, you know, if you had 5 people here and I sang, five people might, two people might love it, 2 people might think it was all right, 1 person might think it's not for them, you know? And that is absolutely right. And I think that is also, I think, a separate lesson to learn, though, in the rejection thing, is that, you know, there's only so much you can do, you know, so you control what you can control, and what you can't control, you can't. So you might as well try and leave it. Now, I'll be honest, it took me about 10 years to get to that point. I definitely did not have that at your age. I definitely did not have that up until about 25, you know, and I'm 32 now, I think. I'm 32, 33, can't remember really. So I, honestly, if someone told me that at this point, I don't think I would have listened. If you can take that on, like, fair play to you. But like, I'm not sure I would have clocked it, because I think at this point you just have to go for it. Because it is a hugely competitive environment. You know, the statistics are like, you know, less than 1% is something ridiculous for drama school, especially the top ones. You know, in GSA, for example, and I don't think they'll mind me quoting this, so we had over 3,000 submissions last year for the BA course, and we took 20. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, it's unbelievable. It's like trying to become a professional footballer, or like this, like, it's like you can't quite conceive. So that's the bit, I think, that comes into preparation, is like, preparation is key, and everybody says that. But it is key, because in the moment, it is a pressurized moment. You have to deliver everything you're capable of in 2 minutes. You know, it's such a nuanced scenario. That the only way you can do your best is rely on what you can do. The only way you can do that is if you've practiced it. So that's where the preparation comes in. So your question of how do you manage rejection? I think there's been periods of time in my life where I haven't handled it very well at all. And I think I've learned to this point to absolutely see it as almost black or white. Like, what can I control? What can't I? And I just focus on the bits I can control and the things that I can't. And, you know, there's been times in my career, the last couple of years, where there's been things I've really wanted and I didn't get. And there's also been things that I really wanted then and didn't get it. And then actually doing something else, and then that thing comes out of nowhere. And, like, you know, asks you to, something comes out of nowhere, you know. So I think I've learned to just become a little bit calmer with it. I would just, as you said, just as I said, just focus on the bits you can control, and like the breaking it down and focusing on the technical stuff that, you know, singing, dancing and acting, to make sure you feel as confident, you know, as possible. Why didn't you tell me how you got into Only Boys Aloud and where your journey started?
So I started in 2018 with Only Kids Aloud.
Oh, Only Voices Aloud now, right?
Yeah. And then I did another year in 2019 with Only Kids, or Only Voices. And then after that, I got into Only Boys Aloud, because I had become too old for Only Kids Aloud. And there was just so many different opportunities with that, I found. Obviously COVID hit, so there was a lot of stuff online, and there was a lot of things being done on Zoom, and the virtual videos that you had to make, where you'd have every person on the screen.
Of course,
and then those opportunities then changed post-COVID, where we would start doing concerts. So I didn't actually do my first Only Boys Aloud concert till 2022. But then I've had so many opportunities since then. And like you said, I feel like I found my love for performing through that. We actually met for the first time in the academy when you came in and did a masterclass. And we worked on a song, and it's opportunities like that and the connections you make through Aloud.
What did you sing again?
I'd Rather Be Sailing.
That's it,
So it's the connections you make through that perhaps gets you opportunities in the future, and get as well just advice and hearing different perspectives of different people. I'm really lucky to have a lot of people through Aloud that I can turn to if I need advice for performing.
And I was the same, right? So where would you be without it then?
Wow.
So if you hadn't joined Only Kids Aloud, where would you be now?
Yeah. I don't think I'd be enjoying performing as much, and also I don't think I'd have as much friends within performing. I'm lucky to be in a school that values performing a lot, but I think a lot of students and a lot of people my age struggle to find their people without stuff like Aloud, because some schools are very academic and some schools are very sport driven. So to have that thing outside of school, and to have those connections and friends and mentors outside of school, I think is really valuable, and it's something that I treasure and something that I look forward to continue as well, because my journey is hopefully not over with Aloud.
Yeah, for sure. So tell me about before that then. So how did you get into Only Kids Aloud? Where did that come from? Were you singing before? Yeah,
so I was doing Eisteddfods since I was year 2, year 3. So kind of performing has always been a part of me, that cliche line, but I've always enjoyed it.
And was that something that was kind of through your parents? Like they decided that, or?
I wouldn't say so. My mum used to sing when she was younger, but it was never something that I felt pressured to do. It was something that I kind of fell into.
Wow.
And I've just turned 18, and my dad found these old videos on like the old-fashioned cameras, and we were watching them, and it was really interesting. I was huge on Toy Story, but I was huge on Toy Story because of the music, not because of the actual film. So I would be singing the songs, and I would be around the house. I wouldn't have the toys. I would be singing the songs.
That's great.
So I think it's always just been something that I've really enjoyed doing. And there's so many different aspects to music and performing, I feel. I'm lucky to be in a band. So I'm a lead singer in a band. So there's and I like to write my own music. There's so many elements to music and performing that I enjoy. And I think that's been a part of me since I was extremely young.
I love that, and it's really strange you say that about the passion for music itself. It's almost like you're saying that the passion for music is like almost it's the reason why you like singing.
Yeah,
because that's exactly the same for me. That's taken a long time for me to get to that point as well. I used to think that I loved singing. I do like singing, and it is partly my job, but I actually love music, and that's taken me, honestly, I only realised that a couple of years ago, so you've done so well to realise that, because my next question for you was going to be like, do you play any instrument? Because I could tell that you were kind of analysing it from a musical point of view.
Yeah,
that's fascinating. So you must have friends in and peers, really good friends, I'm sure, in Only Boys Aloud, and people who you are also just possibly not as close to as well. But you must have people in there who are not like that.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes Aloud really special, is that it's not just for people who want to do performing when they're older. I have a lot of friends. One that did Only Kids Aloud with me back in 2018, and then was in Only Boys Aloud till now. But he has now stopped going because he's doing maths in university.
Great.
And it's just, but he still believes that the Aloud has helped him to do that, because he's grown as a person because of Aloud, and he's made friends because of Aloud, and yeah, he feels like those opportunities have built him towards doing what he wants to do now.
Yeah, you're probably talking about like socially there, like social skills, broadening horizons, mixing with people of all different interests and abilities as well. That's something that really resonates with me. That's something I remember happening when I joined Only Boys Aloud. I just couldn't believe the kind of melting pot of people that you have in there. And I think the only way you can learn to become better in those social environments is to do it, isn't it?
Yeah, just chuck yourself in it.
You can't read about it, can you? You have to do it. That's amazing.
Do you find that that's helped you when you've began working with companies? So when you start doing shows, that you find it easier to gel because you've had those experiences?
Yeah, 100%. And I think also, yes, so within the industry, yes, the fact that when I joined Only Boys Aloud, which I think was in 2010, something like that. You know, from those experiences of socializing in rehearsals and out of rehearsals, and also working with the team leaders, you know, who are fantastic human beings, great role models on and off the stage, which I've always said that. When you then go to the next step, like an audition day where you meet loads of strangers, or you are in a cohort or a company or ensemble of some degree, then of course it's a well-practiced, you've been flexing the muscle, haven't you, you know. The other thing I think is linked to that, though, is the professionalism.
Yeah.
You know, that's something that always got, I think, on reflection, when I was in Only Boys Aloud, I took it for granted, I think, really. Because the quality of what you're doing is insanely high, you know.
Because I brought up singing, acting, dancing as the three elements that I find that I need to perfect for auditions towards drama school.
For musical theatre.
Yeah. But also, like you just said, the professionalism and how you handle yourself in an audition room. And
yes.
Because that is also probably the most important thing, because if you're going to be in that drama school for 3 years, so if they don't want to work with you, they're not gonna pick you.
And that sounds like something I've said, because like that's exactly what they say and exactly what we say on the panel. You know, when you are auditioning for a 3-year course, you know, you're not just auditioning for talent. If you choose that person, you are going to be working with them for 3 years. So how they collaborate, how they take on information, how they are in the room, are they you know, nice to others, are they a team player, you know, is really important. Because how many West End shows have you been to see where there's one person in it? I mean, there's not many. There are, they do exist, there's not many. So you have to be part of an ensemble, you have to work together. And I think, again, that, you know, the camaraderie, the moments that I remember from my time Only Boys Aloud, and the moments that I see when I watch you now and your generation, the generation that's between us and the generation that will come, that is just insane. That atmosphere that is created. The words like are, you know, professional, creative, friendly, open, supportive, inclusive, whatever, all of those words are there. But as Sophie said it on another episode, is like she's seen that as well, and that's the thing that she was most blown away with.
Yeah.
You know, and then you're old enough to realise now, you throw in the fact that it is free to do it.
Yeah.
You know, and so many things aren't these days.
And I've also seen that when applying for drama schools. Drama schools are extremely expensive.
Yeah.
The whole audition processes are expensive. Going to see the places to get a feel of them, going to the places if you're being called for a recall, it is extremely expensive. So being able to get that coaching and that build up towards it for me now almost 8 years is something that, looking back, I will really value, because if I'd have spent money on every single OBA or Only Kids Aloud or academy session that I've been in, I would not be able to afford drama school or even an audition. So the amount and the value for no money that I've had is something that I will always appreciate, and something that I will always value extremely highly.
And it's amazing that you have that mindset about it already, and you're only 18. You know, I didn't have that when I was 18. I think I was just so in it, you know. But you know, I remember being there, and I remember having workshops with like Fawr came in for an academy workshop. We had Jonathan Butterall, who is you know, world-round you know, director, one of the best in the world now. And then you've got, you know, all of the team leaders, Timothy Sevens and all sorts, like, who have you just feed off those people. They're role models to you on and off the stage. And as you said, you know, people would pay an awful lot of money worldwide to have 20 minutes with one of those people. And in Only Boys Aloud, in the Aloud charity, you know, you get these experiences for free, and you get that influence and nurturing that can help you get to that point. And you're in a position where you are pursuing this, you know, you are good at music, you are good at singing, and you want to pursue that as a career. But would you not agree that those experiences are also valuable to people who aren't? Yeah,
100%. And also being able to say that you've done that. I performed when I was 10 in BBC Proms in the Park. I've done multiple concerts. I've sang with Rebecca Evans. I've sang with Gwawr Edwards. So I've sang with loads of these incredible people and on massive stages. And even if that's not what you want to do, being able to put that on an application if you want to study maths is something that will definitely differentiate you from someone that's just been doing maths all their life. So I think there's aspects of it that everyone can learn from.
Yeah, it's cool as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, in a short way of saying, like, it's pretty damn cool.
Yeah.
You know, to do some of the experiences that you've done, and you know, right on cue. Haven't you not just come back from Japan with OBA?
Yeah, I have.
Well, tell me about that.
So we had 10 days over in Japan. There was 12 of us and 3 leaders. So we had Craig, Paul and Linos, who had to look after us over in Japan and make sure we were respectful.
So what were you doing there? Like, you know, tell me all.
So we did workshops in schools, in Japanese schools. We did flash mobs, if you will, in like train stations and all sorts. But I would say the thing that I valued the most was the workshops, being able to learn about a lot about their culture and the opportunities that they maybe have over in Japan, and being able to make that connection and kind of compare, and also I think it really made me realize how lucky I have been. One, being able to go there in the first place to have that conversation and to be able to compare was something in itself. But then the way they spoke about performing and the way they appreciated and saw how many opportunities we'd had was just breathtaking, really, to make that comparison. But also, I learned a lot from them and the opportunities that they've had and the culture that they lived in. They were so much nicer. They were so much more respectful, and it showed us how much, like, our country is doing wrong.
Wow.
But then again, how much opportunities have I had? So it really just opened my eyes, and it really it was an incredible opportunity.
And just spell it out for us for a minute. You know, how you were part of Only Boys Aloud, which is part of the Aloud charity.
Yeah.
How did you go to Japan? How did that happen?
They contacted us on email saying that there's an opportunity to go to Japan. We would have to do an application where we would send a video of us singing in, and then they would choose from that pool. As well, they knew us, so they wanted to pick the best people to interact with in these workshops. So that was a really important element of it. But also it was government funded. So again, it plays into that element of Only Boys Aloud being free, that the fact that I've been able to build this connection and get this opportunity for a lot less money than you would pay usually, is just something that I extremely value.
Yeah, and you know, if you weren't part of Only Boys Aloud, then you wouldn't have gone to Japan.
No.
You know, and it's such a obvious, far-fetched thing to say, but it's the truth.
It's a bucket list moment that I've been able to tick off at 18 years old because of Aloud.
Sure, incredible. Did you learn any Japanese?
I did.
Go on then.
Konnichiwa.
Hey.
Arigato gozaimasu. That is thank you very much, and you had to bow every time you say that. So
I have read
that'll
that.
be the outro.
Yeah.
Say that.
Yeah, I want to hear the entire thing at the end of the episode. Great. Okay, so that's up until now, and here we are now, 2025, in this, you know, just started this academic year, if you like. So you've got some examinations in January or in summer?
In summer.
Okay. What A-levels have you taken?
I do try and guess what I want to do when I'm older. Music.
Well, I was gonna guess. Yeah.
Tech music. That's it.
Music, drama, and tech music.
Yeah.
Tech music is all about production.
Yeah.
Producing music, creating music. Oh, that sounds bang on for you. That's amazing. They've got that in school.
Yeah.
No?
Yeah.
Like,
so all the Welsh schools in Cardiff are able to also come to our school to do that subject. So again, it's kind of looking at music and seeing that is my passion. So how many different angles can I try and look at music in? And so that subject offers me that.
Brilliant. So, you know, we're in the end of 2025 now. 2026 looks like auditioning, exciting time, looking at drama schools. Are you auditioning for a couple of drama schools?
Yeah. So I would say I've been to all the drama schools that I would audition for.
Physically?
Yes.
Oh, great.
So that's been, I appreciate that from my parents as well. I'm really lucky to have that support from them, and that they're willing to take time.
Get in the car and drive.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
But one place, and I'm not just saying this, one place I did fall in love with was GSA. I really liked the element of mixing with different courses and the campus element of it. I felt really safe and secure there. And I also really liked the people when I went there. So that is one place that I'm definitely auditioning this year. So I might meet you again.
Yeah, hopefully I will see you. Hopefully I will see you there at some point. You know, certainly in the auditions, sometimes I help out with that. Obviously, you know, nothing I can do to put an arm in or anything. But it's the amount of times that I've heard what you've said there. Everybody says it, and I said it too when I went there to audition. There's something different about it, and this is not an advert for Guildford School of Acting, because lots of drama schools are top tier, and you know, this was the best place for me. I would say it's the best place for most people because of the environment. Again, it's that word, isn't it? Like we talked about Aloud, Only Boys Aloud. Like, what kind of atmosphere is it? And the atmosphere in GSA in Guildford does feel supportive, a family environment, family environment. You know, calm, and the people feel well-rounded, rather than just talented. You know, they're talented, but they're well-rounded, and I think that comes full circle because they also, you know, look for that in staff as well. I'm not saying that because I teach there, but it definitely does feel like that. So, you know, obviously, off the record, I wish you all the very best with the auditions and stuff. And, you know, as you said, I'm, as part of the Aloud, as with any other people, happy to help, happy to answer questions about any of that, because it is a very specific, nuanced thing to do. And I remember when I was your age, I didn't have anybody to ask, really. I had people to ask, but they didn't have the answers because they hadn't done it. And that's no disrespect to anybody, because I had some incredible you know, influential teachers and stuff within Aloud and outside, but I didn't have anyone. So I always say, and as I've said to you, I'm always happy to answer the questions, whatever it is, even if it feels silly. Because
but I wouldn't be here even talking to you and getting this advice from you without Aloud, I feel. You know, I started in 2018, and the leader of our choir was Tim, who is now the head of
music, I think, at the Royal Welsh College of Music and Drama in Cardiff. Yes.
So there's connections you make, and Craig and Paul, I spoke to them for my rep when we were out in Japan. They were giving me advice on that. So it's these connections and all these different people that I can turn to for advice on, like you said, a really nuanced thing that not a lot of other people will understand. So having those people within the industry to give that advice is something that I really appreciate.
Totally. And it pays dividends, doesn't it? Because then you feel more confident, you feel more prepared to go in and deliver your best. Nice.
I am looking forward, and hopefully that is where it takes me. But I feel like I've been built as a person because of the opportunities, and I feel well-rounded in that aspect. And it's made the type of people that work in that industry is the type of people that I also enjoy being with. I 2 years ago I was looking at all sorts of courses, songwriting, tech music, even straight drama, and I did a course, a BYMT course. So that's British Youth Musical Theatre, and I did that, and those were my people. The people that were on that course, you know, we had conversations about every musical under the sun. We just talked and talked and talked. And it showed me that not just because of the music and the acting and the dancing element of it, but it's the people and the connections that I've made throughout the years that has pushed me towards wanting a career in musical theatre.
So let's play best case scenario, right? You get into drama school next year, Guildford School of Acting or similar, right? On a musical theatre course. Or maybe not next year, you get in. The year after, whatever. Because on average it takes 3 years to get in, by the way. And I think actually there's a fact out there somewhere that a Judi Dench took 7 or something. Don't quote me on that. You get into drama school, you do 3 years of training. What is the dream?
I think the dream is to enjoy what I'm doing. Be that through musical theatre or through coaching musical theatre. or through. There's again, it's looking at it from so many different angles. I would consider myself quite a realistic person. I'm not saying that I want every role under the sun, because as well, the best person in musical theatre won't get every role under the sun. I think I have to look at it in a way where I want to be happy and I want to enjoy what I'm doing. And I think for me right now, that is through musical theatre and being on stage and singing, acting, dancing with people that I enjoy being with. But in 5 years, after being in a couple West End shows with a couple of lead roles and a couple of ensemble roles and a couple of swing roles, if that is then turning to directing or if that is turning to coaching, that is something that I'm really open to do. I just want to be involved. I just want to enjoy what I'm doing, and musical theatre gets me that enjoyment.
I think that's such a mature way of looking at it. You know, it's really impressive that you've got that understanding and groundedness about it, because it is a very unconventional, fickle industry. You know, even it is the best job in the world, but it's not easy. It's not conventional in its progression. You know,
I think it's the best job in the world if you get it. yeah. And in the same way, if I was passionate about surgery and I was a surgeon, then that'll also be the best job in the world, right? I think that's great though, because I think these days, especially now in the industry where it's so competitive, everybody I know who is successful, and I'm successful in inverted commas because what is success? You know, like, you've hit the nail right on the head. You've got to enjoy what you're doing. Wow. You know, you should write a book on that. You know, you should maybe present a podcast because that is such a good outlook on life and your career. You know, the thing is that you've got this passion for music and singing, right? And best case scenario, that's going to turn into your job. And that's a strange transition. I'll say from experience, you know, because something that you love and becomes work is a strange one. Especially when, you know, you get older, you've got responsibilities, you've got rent to pay, or, you know, children, whatever. No time soon for you, but you know what I mean? Like, it becomes an added kind of need, I guess, rather than a want to want to do it. You might actually have to need to do it. So then when you come back to the whole audition process, like that's a different kind of thing. So I think if you've got that outlook to the dream is to enjoy it and be happy, you know, that's I think that's fantastic. Honestly, I do. And it may come across cliche and it may come across in a different kind of way, but that is how I feel, and that is I know that I get enjoyment out of being on stage and being with musical people who enjoy the same thing as me, and it's something that I've probably gotten from Aloud, because no one's forcing you to be in Aloud. No one's telling you need to be there. So everyone who is there shares that passion and shares that enjoyment, and they're there because they're enjoying what they're doing. So I think it comes from that, and it comes from I'm doing it because I'm enjoying it, not because I need to or because I feel the need to. Yeah,
and life's busy for you, right? You've got a lot going on. You know, you've got your exams and your preparations and coursework, I'm sure, and all sorts of other stuff. So it's not like you're just twiddling your thumbs. You know, you're making time for it, aren't you? You're choosing every time to go to it. And you're also choosing to practice and learn your harmonies and learn your lines and learn Japanese and make sure, you know, all of that. You know, you're making time for it. And I absolutely think that's such a valuable skill and valuable experience. You know, is teaching you commitment, diligence, punctuality amongst a really important time for your academic life as well. Right? What would you say to someone who is thinking about joining Only Boys Aloud or Only Voices Aloud?
I would say that it's built me towards the person I am today, and I think if that's if musical theatre or if acting or if singing is what you want to do, it is 1000% the place for you. But if it's not, I think it still is as well. I think, you know, I have so many friends, and I think I'm trying to work out, in Japan, 8 of the 12 that were there aren't studying any sort of music. One is studying biology, 2 are studying maths, 1 is studying medicine. There's and the experiences they've gained from Aloud from an extremely young age has built them to the person they are today. The confidence that they've gained, the connections that they've made, how to deal with people. If you're wanting to work with medicine, you need to know how to deal with people and how to be a kind person and be confident and know what you're doing and learn your stuff early and know what you're talking about or know what you're singing if it's singing. So I think there's experiences and skills that you learn through Aloud that you can use in different aspects of life.
So do you think there's people out there who perhaps haven't joined something like Only Boys Aloud because they think it isn't for them?
Yeah.
Because they're good at football.
Yeah. I have friends in school who I constantly tell, you should come because you will have fun and you will learn skills that you can. If you want to do economics, like one of my friends has an incredible bass voice, but he will not come because economics is what he wants to do. But I'm telling him over and over and over and over again, you will gain skills from that you can use. And he is now considering joining.
So like, I love that. So if there was a pie chart of benefit of being in Only Boys Aloud, what percentage is music?
For me, probably a bigger percentage, because I've when I'm receiving a score, I'm not looking at it as something I need to learn because I need to learn it for the concert. It's something I want to dissect, enjoy.
And that's because of where you were before Only Boys Aloud.
Yeah.
Sure.
But then for other people, learning music under an intense environment, academy is 10 days and you receive it at the beginning and you need to learn it by the end.
Yeah.
So that skill of picking something up that quickly and, not going out to play football during your break, learning it is skills that, I've had to learn because of Only Kids Aloud or because of experiences before that, but something some people won't learn till uni. Not going out on a night, on a Wednesday night, but actually staying in and looking at the stuff that you've learned that day. So it's skills that you pick up from that. I think that a lot of people will value. So it's not just about singing. Yeah.
Let's debunk the word choir, right? Because I think with the word choir, there comes with a stigma of it, potentially being a bit old-fashioned or not cool. I can certainly talk about that till the cows come home. But what do you think about that? How can we... So I think there's people out there, right? There's boys out there, and I'll be honest, I probably was one of these, who if I watched these episodes, I would love listening to it. But I'm not sure I would have had the confidence to have gone, Mom, Dad, I want to join.
Yeah.
So how do we break into that? And I think it's linked to the stigma, right?
Yeah, I think there is a lot that you can gain from a choir. I have been in a choir before and I've loved it, but that is a personal thing for me. While I think Only Boys Aloud and Aloud Voices is different. I think it's a community. I think it's a
place.
Yeah, it's a place. And I think you don't know what you're going to get from it until you go. Yeah. Because again, it's going back to that thing of like, what do you want from it? Like, do you want to find your tribe? Do you want to grow musically? Do you want to get opportunities to sing with massive names? Do you want to sing on big stages? Do you want to sing in small stages?
Or do you want to make friends? Or do you want to...
It's what you want from it. Rather, in a choir, you know what you're getting. You're learning music, you're doing it once a week, and you know the people that are going. Yeah. While here, as well, I really enjoy that it's all parts of Wales as well, and that it's a, I've got friends from North Wales that I know that I'm only seeing maybe 3-4 times a year, but I'm so excited for that time because we wouldn't get those opportunities with a local choir.
Yeah.
So you've said a couple of times about like not getting in this year and like next year or the year after, but also Judi Dench not getting in for 7 years or whatever.
Yes.
What would you say? What would be your advice in a way, if I don't get in this year? I've mentioned about trying to perfect my skills before, but what, I'm going to have so much free time. What would your advice be?
Yeah, I think, the framework for the answer that I'm going to give is that, as I said, it's a hugely competitive world. So like sometimes people with the best of interests and the best of talents, and even then still don't get in. And I know so many talented students and performers who are my age or older or younger who didn't get in for a very long time, 3-4 years. Some of those people got into drama school. I'm thinking of one person now, I'm not going to name them, but people will know who she is because of what she's achieved. They might work it out. Took 4 years to get into drama school. That means applying to several, over 10 for 4 years, right? Then got in the 4th year to Guildford School of Acting. That's how I know her. She was in my 3rd year when I was in 1st year. I cannot tell you how talented this person is. I can't tell you how hardworking she is. I can't tell you how great she is on and off the stage. She has it. Whatever you think someone needs to do it, she had it. After 3rd year, she got herself an agent and then did not work for 4 years again. Nothing at all, which was flabbergasting, if I'm going to lie. And like, she obviously found that hard. She's not a personal, really close friend of mine, but she is someone I know. In that 4th year, she decided to focus on herself and do some other stuff. Like, she trained to be a Pilates instructor, blah, 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 blah. In that 4th year, she auditioned for Show X, which I won't say because that's the show she got. Wicked, which she was in for Glinda, and Les Miserables, she was in for Fantine. She got Fantine, she got Glinda, and she got the show that she originated the role in West End. She did that for 2 years. She then transferred it to Broadway, did it in Broadway, has not stopped since. She's now on Netflix. Right? So, use that analogy. She was someone who didn't get in for 4 years, right? I wish I could say that was rare. I don't think it is rare.
No.
Unfortunately, I can't change that. It's a hugely competitive industry, and I said about what you can control and what you can't control. That's a prime example, and if I'm honest, like, even for someone like that, and for someone who I also deem as extremely successful in this industry, even people like, we mentioned Michael Ball in another, or Alfie Boe in another episode, in terms of musical theatre performers, you couldn't name somebody bigger than those. Even for those though, they have this, right? And I think that's part of it. And then you come all the way back to this point with drama school. What if you don't get in? Well, if you've got the outlook of what I've just said there, it is the long game, right? So like, if you have the talent, if you have the drive to keep improving your craft, and you have, I believe, the awareness to have your head screwed on and look after yourself whilst you do it, and focus on happiness and all that kind of fulfillment, and making sure you're good from within, then time is like different, right? There's no pressure of doing it now because you can achieve it later on.
And I think what worries me in a way is that I would lose that passion, and that I would lose that love for music and musical theatre. But like what you've just said kind of makes me think that, I'm never going to lose that. I'm never going to lose that passion. I'm never going to lose that love. It's more kind of like, am I willing to work that hard, and am I willing to have that rejection to keep going
for that long?
Yeah,
exactly. And I think that's right. And I think that also touches upon something that I hear a lot of people saying at the moment is, does doing it make me happy? And obviously doing it will make you happy, getting an applause from 2,500 people, you try and tell me a better feeling. I'm not sure there is one. But does that make you happy, 24/7 for 365 days of the year? Possibly. But it shouldn't really, though, should it?
No.
That's like saying, like, if I'm a dentist, am I going to be happy as Larry 24/7?
Yeah.
If you wanted to be a dentist, I keep saying about dentist. I think you're right in that instinct.
Yeah.
That, like, it is your passion. It is what you are good at, and it's what you love. And hopefully you will carve out a career with it. I'm sure you will, no doubt. But it is it's not, a straight line.
It's not A to B.
And I said the analogy that is almost extreme but isn't rare. There are also people who in between that too. I was really lucky when I auditioned. I was going to study geography. when I was in the academy 2017, 18. I actually did my accommodation for York University, went up there to have a look. You know, God knows what I was thinking, to be honest. But it was what I was thinking. You know, I can't go against it. And that's what I was going to go and do. And then, honestly, and I'll talk about this more in my episode, but I was influenced hugely by Aloud and Only Boys Aloud to give it a go and try. And I could only apply to 3 because I'd already filled up my UCAS with, the struggles and all that. And I had to just go for it. Yeah. And I don't really remember it, but my parents say that I literally went for it. Off my own accord. And I don't quite remember it, but they said, I was up all night researching, all night writing my, whatever the statement is, doing my own headshots, took my own, I had to do full body shots and all that, found a dance class, I did it all myself. And I've always been quite a strong-minded person. Everyone who knows me will tell you that. But I certainly wasn't confident at that age. I might have put a front on that I was, but I wasn't. So I went out and tried to make it happen. And I was lucky in that scenario, that in that year of that, thought I was going to do geography, thought that's what I was wanting to do. Someone said, maybe you should try to drama school, apply to 3. And of that was one of Guildford School of Acting. And that's where I felt like I belonged. And I got in and I just went for it. Yeah. And I grabbed it and... it sounds cliche, but the rest is history because I literally went from this is what I was going to go and do, and then I ended up doing this, and here we are. But between that, I know so many people who have had this experience, the experience I said about someone else just now, and literally everything in between. So tried for a year, tried for 2 years, did well, really well out of drama school, had 3 years of nothing. Then went to Hollywood, or get into drama school straight away, have a couple of years of nothing, then massive job in the West End or Broadway. So I think is a general realistic response, and I think if you know that, which you definitely seem to have, then it is then a choice, isn't it? It's a choice of as you said, how prepared am I to make this my consistent, potentially lifelong passion. By the sound of things, to me, music in particular seems so instilled in what you love, then that is not going to falter, whether you perform 8 shows a week or 8 times a year in Aberdeen or in Abu Dhabi. Do you know what I mean? That's the way I kind of see it.
Thanks for tuning in to this recent episode of the Aloud podcast. If you're looking for your local choir, visit aloud.cymru, follow us on socials, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel on YouTube. Keep singing.